fact, investors are now going to be focusing on the PCE inflation print that will be out today, expected to show another decline in underlying price pressures. Let's take that story forward with Dan Lacalle, who's the chief economist at Tressis Gestion, joining us with his take on things. Dan, lovely to have you on the show. Thank you very much for your time. Do you think that today's PCE performance or the indicator, what it comes out with, would be enough to reassure the Fed that it's time to hold?
I think, thank you very much, that the Fed is going to pay a lot of attention to the underlying trend on the PCE deflator. And I think that it may be that today's print doesn't look too good because the base effect is not working in favor. And we have seen in the past 2 months bounce in commodities globally. So there are a number of factors that could make the PCE deflator less solid than what we would imagine for the Fed to stop the rate hike path. What I see is that the cycle of rate hikes is certainly close to over. I think that in any shape or form, the way that we look at how the economy is behaving, but also how prices, core CPI, the production prices and import prices, if we see it all the different aspects of what the Fed looks at, it's certainly an environment that calls for the Fed to stop the rate hikes and pause and see how the economy develops.
And how are you feeling about that? How are you looking at the economic situation unfold from here?
What I think is evident is that the soft landing that the Fed announced was more or less similar to what they had in their projections. But there are concerning elements that we should take into account. Consumer confidence remains extremely poor, and at the same time, there is a risk of an investment recession. If we look at the components of real consumption, real wages, and investment, those are showing a much larger slowdown and a much weaker print than what we would imagine in this soft landing environment. So overall GDP, good. The economy, the labor market, strong. All of this suggests that the Fed should stop the rate hikes and then pause and see if that monetary contraction actually works in favor of reducing prices without destroying the economy. And so far, it needs to pay attention to some of these, let's say, more subdued and more refined elements of the economy.
Dan, as an international investor, how closely were you watching what the Bank of Japan announced overnight? We saw quite a sizable move in U.S. yields into the event. Things have calmed down now, but I wonder to what extent you think the decision out of the Bank of Japan to raise that limit is going to have international ramifications going forwards.
I believe that what the Central Bank of Japan is trying to do is to come back to the level of stabilization of the currency and control of the yield curve that they had prior to the rate hike cycle. It's very difficult. It's very difficult. What the Bank of Japan is trying to do is virtually impossible. So it's likely to break on one side or the other. It's likely to break either on higher inflation for longer in Japan, which the population and the economy is not able to support, and or much, let's say, different environment, which would be a much weaker currency. The yen has been very poor relative to the US dollar in an environment in which the US dollar has performed quite weakly relative to major currencies. So it's very important because the Central Bank of Japan and the Japanese economy are huge buyers of treasuries, of U.S. treasuries. It's actually the most important international buyer of U.S. treasuries. So a strong currency with high entry of reserves is a key component of what the Bank of Japan looks at. And those things are not happening. So I think that the normalization path of the Bank of Japan, although the governor of the Bank of Japan is saying that this is not normalization, that path is inevitable.
Yeah. Dan, we're going to leave it there. Thank you very much for joining us. Always interesting to hear your perspectives on markets. Dan Lacalle, Chief Economist from Tressis Gestion.
Thank you for watching this video. Please subscribe to my channel, like my videos, leave your comments below, and keep defending freedom. Thank you very much.